Hello, I'm Rebecca Horan and welcome to A Little Birdie Told Me, a podcast brought to you by rollercoaster.ie. In season 4, I'm going to be talking to a range of well-known Irish faces about being in the trenches when it comes to parenting. On this episode, and to celebrate Mother's Day, I'm joined by author and journalist Barbara Scully. Barbara talks to me about raising her 3 daughters, and she imparts some wonderful words of wisdom. So, when I was getting season 4 ready in my mind and knew what I wanted, it was very different to what season 3 looked like. I really had to think about what I wanted to achieve, what people had messaged me about the previous series, what they wanted more of, what they didn't want. I had to listen to that. We did a lot of fertility, baby loss, struggles within a relationship to get there, the pregnancies, we did labour wards. And suddenly I was like, there's this massive void of people who are bringing up children with additional needs, people who are solo parenting, separation, toxic relationships, parenting children with all of these different. And then I looked at the fact that we have people who've raised children and have done what we're all trying to do and effectively talking about and reading books about and shiting on about on Instagram. And I wanted to reach out to someone who I was friendly with, but who I also really respected and who's, a journalist, has written a book and everything. So welcome to the podcast, Barbara Scully, author and broadcaster, who I'm so excited to have on, because I mentioned it to you, didn't know what she'd think about doing a parenting podcast, but I was like, I need to get her on.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I'm delighted to be here.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
Because I know you from knowing you and having the banter and being friendly with you and doing stuff previously. I know you from Instagram, but then there's so many parts of your life I haven't
like everybody
dug deep. Yeah, exactly. You have 3 daughters.
I do.
What ages?
My eldest is 36. The next one is 24, about to turn 25. And then the youngest one has just turned 23.
So can I say, and it's not an ignorant statement, you feel like you've done it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
Like you've done that part of the...
I've done the parenting. There's no more I can do.
The school, university, you've done that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Right.
And they're kind of to, a large extent, they're on their own. Now, that doesn't mean I don't care about them. That doesn't mean I don't love them. That doesn't mean I'm not there to give them whatever support they want me to give. Yeah. But I'm very clear in my own head that my job of parenting is done. And it basically is done kind of as soon as they start going to college.
Do you think that?
Yeah, like I'm not going to, they have their own ideas, they have their own plans, they have their own needs, they have their own dreams. They're not my dreams.
Is that crazy?
It's
sorry, because I'm a 5 and a 2-year-old and I can't even think of them having their own. Do you find it so wonderful to watch someone become their own?
Do you know what's the best thing? The best thing is that, and I know maybe I am lucky, I suppose, in that I never wanted sons.
Okay.
And God never gave me sons.
Amazing.
Which was grand because I grew up with 3 brothers and I always just wanted to have a sister. I just always wanted to have a sister. I got on really well with my mum. We were very close. So when...
And you're a woman's woman.
Am I maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
But as in, sorry, you get on with men, but you... I'm sure loads of women wreck your head and are horrendous, but I'm saying you know women. I feel you intrinsically get us.
Well, I'm very happy to be a woman. I've spent most of my life saying I'm so glad I'm not a man.
No, same.
But so I always wanted daughters. So I'm very lucky that I have 3 daughters. And I was always worried growing up because, as I say, I grew up in a very male-dominated house with 3 brothers, my dad. My granddad came to live with us for a while.
Wow.
My uncle, who had a learning disability, came to live with us when I was 9 and stayed for all of my childhood, and he stayed beyond that. So it was a very male-dominated household. So myself and my mum were really, really close. And it was unusual. Now, this is back in the kind of late 60s, early 70s. To be buddies. Yeah. Myself and my mum, like my first alcoholic drink was bought by my mother.
Which is generationally not really wasn't the norm
at
all.
No, it was very unusual. And I always worried then when I had my own kids that I would just automatically assume that I was going to have the same relationship with them. And I thought maybe, that
maybe they won't
it
like
was unusual.
Me.
And because we're all different. We're all people, and just because you're family or you're the mother or, sister, doesn't mean you necessarily will get on particularly well. But I'm very lucky and I thank my lucky stars all the time. I get on very well with them. And
they're 3 very different ladies.
Totally different. You kind of wonder about this nature-nurture thing because they all basically, Carla was probably slightly different, but the other 2 certainly had all the same influences and there's only less than 2 years between them.
So you think we're born with our personalities?
Oh, totally.
So we are born as we're born. And then there's things
the nurture can either, I suppose, has an effect, obviously. But I think that now that I'm at the stage where I live, I mean, I'm always giving out at home saying, it's time you guys moved out. And I mean, there's not a chance of them moving out anytime soon. But at the same time, I'm very lucky in that we do get on very well. And although I keep saying to them, it's time you moved out, me and your father want to downsize, we want to go live in the country and have donkeys, and someday we're just going to go, you're going to come home, we're not going to be here. But at the same token, I'd miss them terribly if they weren't here.
But are you still okay, so like they're living their own great lives and everything. Do you feel like you have taken a step back and do you miss that role? Because I do. Yes, because I remember you saying to me, had I had my first baby, probably, so it's maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I hate when people say this. I'm going, what did they
say?
No,
it was nothing bad, but I'll never forget you saying, I said, it's really hard. And as grateful as I am. And you said, yeah, it's really hard. And I said, but I do hope we have another 3. And you said, yeah, after 3. And you did say, I'm really glad that they're growing up and becoming independent. Yeah. And I said, wow, we all get emotionally guilted about like, enjoy every second. And you're like, no, I really loved it when I was in it. But I'm at the stage now where I'm really glad that they're at this stage. But and I was actually quite shocked. I loved that.
Yeah, that's the whole point of parenting.
Because women get a lot of...
Yeah, no, and this whole, like,
enjoy it.
I mean, obviously everybody's different, but I've just said that I like having them at home. I admit, well, I mean, I'd love if they moved out, but I could still see them. But I don't totally get the whole empty nest syndrome thing, because I think, and I was aware of it from very early on, that the whole point of parenting is to make them independent, if only because you're not going to be there forever for them. So you need them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and you need them to be able to live their own lives. So, as they start to do that, and perhaps turn out to be doing stuff that you hadn't ever thought that they would do, or be the people, a lot of it is a surprise, because as I say, you've got to, my daughter, Carla, who's the only one who's married, she got married in 2017. Here, she came home. She lives in Australia now. So she came home and got married here. And she made a speech at her wedding, which blew me away. And one of the things she said that I had never thought of, but I was just so delighted. She said to me, when she was paying tribute to her mom, she said, you gave us the freedom to be whoever we wanted to be. And I thought,
we love Carla.
Okay, I did that by mistake, but I'm glad I did.
But you are that person. You're not a controlling woman in your nature. It's not your nature to try and rule the roost.
I hope not. I mean, sometimes I'm a little too hands off. I think sometimes I'm a bit like, you're grand.
That's
you're grand.
Great, Barbara. I think this is an important.
Sometimes I'm a bit
the gentle parenting and the helicopter. No, we've got to learn from others. We can't think that just because we're on a new course that we're all doing it. I actually think there's a lot to be said. It worries me. There's guilt. We know women are still giving up their careers and their droves. We know it. Well, we see it. It's palpable. There's a ton of guilt when you come home. We're still taking on tons of, like, I work full time. I'm still the mental load. So nothing is really shifting except the resentment is still there and all of that.
That's one thing that I touched on it in the book, but I mean, I would like to write more about this because
Can you mention the name of your book?
My book is called Wise Up, Wisdom Power in the Older Woman. But now it's a book for everybody, although it is from the perspective of somebody who's older. But part of it is memoir, and it goes back into kind of the adult decades of my life and looking at some of the things that were formative in those years. And I mean, my life is unfolded much like most women's lives unfolded. And then there's kind of the whole basic point of the book is that I believe getting older is amazing. And you get the freedoms that I have now by comparison to where you are just so delicious.
What age are we allowed to say what age we are?
I'm 61, yeah. I'm 62
incredible.
In
We're not allowed to say you look incredible, you do look incredible. I was very depressed, I think, heading into 40. Not about getting older. Sorry, about how I didn't feel that age. More so. That I was sad that I actually still feel like I'm 24. And I feel maybe there's a lot of mentality there of that time that I'm romanticizing it too, by the way. The 20s were hideous, right? But I think it was more sad that you don't even notice the years go. And then I'm meant to be celebrating a milestone and being hip, hip, hooray. But it wasn't about how I'd physically look. I was actually thrilled to be privileged enough to age, to be here, to be done with the baby making, actually, to be done caring so much, and I have a lot more confidence. But there was an emotional part of me going, God, I'm sad for what it was. I'm very depressed, and only now am I going, well, I am fucking 40 now.
It's interesting because when I was looking back on my own life, I realised that turning 30 for me, and I was a single parent at that stage for 5 years, turning 30 was the bleakest birthday ever. And again, it was because I suddenly thought, this isn't where I ever thought I would be. And by 30... And maybe it's different in your generation, but my generation, by 30, you were meant to be kind of the having it. We were the having it all generation.
The husband, the kids, the house.
The husband, the kids, the house, the career, the whole works we were meant to have. And I was a single parent, still living at home, struggling, couldn't see the future. And I remember that I was turning 30 which, you know, any of the big, as Joe Duffy would say, the big roundy birthdays should be cause for celebration. I ended up down the local Chinese with my mother and my best friend, and that was it.
Sounds ideal.
And I remember, now, but
I'm
like
joking.
when I was 30, I was this is just tragic.
Yeah.
Where
is the love, the crack, the support, the family? Where is it?
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, your life never, I don't believe, unfolds exactly the way that you thought.
And it does for some people, and I think for the people it doesn't. There's a little bit more magic in them, because there are people I know and things have box ticked beautifully, and I never feel
until they die how their life is.
Of course, but I think the ones who've had the bumps, the passion is there, that energy is there.
Well, I think what you do is, and again, it's one of the things that I realized and is in my book, is that I think as you get older, and only if you look back on your life, which I did by a mistake, because the book wasn't working out the way I wanted it to, and I thought maybe this is the way to do it. And I realised after I'd written the book that what I'd done is called a life audit, where I look back on your life and you look at the things that you've gotten through.
Yeah.
And what you realise at the end of the day is that Winnie the Pooh was spot on the money when he said, you are, I can't quote this now exactly right, but he basically said, you are smarter than you think and you are stronger than you know. And he said something else that I can't remember. But, you know, that is the truth. You look back and you go, oh God, I weathered that, and I'm here, and I got through it. And all of us go through. I don't believe anybody goes through life living a charmed life where everything falls into place.
Maybe we just think they are.
You just think they are, and I don't.
Maybe you're right.
I don't think anybody gets through unscathed. And I think you suddenly get to my age and you go, I am actually stronger than I think.
And why are you so happy to be? I'm not saying aging at your age now. What is it? Because you've accomplished a lot. What is it that you love?
It's two things. It's number one, I've realised that it's a privilege to age. You get to my age and you'll have lost people along the way. You'll have lost friends of your age. So not everybody gets to be 61. I'm thrilled I'm 61. That's number one. But number two, and this is a huge one, is just the freedom of being where I am now. Like I said to you before, I know where you are. I know the stage of life you're at with, as you say, having your career, running a home, 2 small kids, all of that. That is hugely pressurized. And there's studies done that show that life is actually a smile. So that in terms of happiness, we start off, say, in our 20s, 25, and we're happy.
In our adult life.
The world is our oyster. We've left school, left college. We can be anything we want. There's all the opportunities.
Apparently, yeah.
You know that place?
Yeah.
And you've got all the hedonistic lifestyle. It's great, you know, and it's all wonderful. And then it starts to go downhill. And when you're in your 30s and in your 40s, that's when life is actually hardest. And and these are studies that have shown this. And this is when people are at their least happy. Wow. And the reasons being is you've got your mortgage, you've got the bills, you've got small kids, you're trying to run jobs.
So should we not do all this? Should we not try and do all this?
I believe, and this is where I believe the older women come in, I believe that feminism, which, you know, great, yippee-doo, achieved more or less freedom for women, but only in a world that has been created by men, for men, who had women at home doing all the stuff that women are still doing, only now they're going out to work as well. And
so we're chained to the desk, we're chained to the kitchen, we're chained to the baby's bed. But am I correct? We're still chained to whatever we do.
But we need to change the world. We need to say we don't need to work.
But do we, sorry, when you're saying about this beautiful arc and that you come out maybe at 50 so and you're in that metaphor.
45 it starts to change, by the way.
But then are we not fundamentally, and this is what I was speaking to my friends about earlier, societal shift. Why are we wanting to, is it a physiological wanting to get married and have kids and have the house? Like, isn't there an issue with that?
I think that's a base. No, I don't think there's necessarily an issue with that. I think that's a very kind of, I mean, to me, my family is the most important part of my life. And I don't see that with rosy glasses on. Like, you know what I mean? Myself and my husband kill each other on a fairly regular basis. So take your kids and the husband
out of it. Career-wise, would you been happy just having your career?
I thought I would have been, but I think in retrospect, like when I was young, again, as I say, the do-it-all gender, I was like, marriage maybe down the line. But I never really kind of had this, I want to be a princess for a day, I want the day out, I want to be Mrs. So-and-so. Never wanted any of that. Knew I wanted kids, even before I became pregnant on my own at 25. Always knew I wanted to be a mother. And that is still the most important part of my life.
That's so interesting.
But what we need to do is we need to change society. And this shouldn't be gendered. We need to change society so that it's no longer necessary for 2 parents or 2 partners in a relationship to have to work full time.
To kill themselves.
Just to get the basics. I mean, you know, I remember myself
It is
and my
just the
husband
basics,
doing
Barbara,
it.
at the end of the
It's
day.
paying
We're not
the
rich
bills that
from
no one-
anything.
Exactly.
No, it's not like we're
Exactly.
not.
And I remember when
we're not richer in any sense, mentally, physically,
and we're
or
poorer in lots of ways. I mean, I remember when my youngest daughter was about 1, and she was born premature and she had some health issues, but she was okay. She was in creche. I had a toddler in creche. I had a teenager in school, working full time. Paul runs his own business. He's freelance. So his job isn't 9 to 5. My job was for a national charity. It wasn't 9 to 5 either. And there was the tension constantly as to whose job was the most important.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, going home and saying, oh, I've got a public meeting to do next Thursday in Portlaoise. And Paul's going, yeah, but I have a job that's going to go on till midnight.
Which is money.
And then, who's, you know, so there was that. And I remember one particular day.
I think that's one of the biggest breaks of a marriage, or a break of that financial
home,
and career conversation.
But also, I can remember clearly coming home at the end of a busy day, parking on the drive with the 2 in the back, bringing them in. There's still all the breakfast dishes in the kitchen. And I'm like, okay, what's my priority here? It's to feed the kids, get them into the bath, and do story time with a happy face and all the... And then myself and my husband generally ate at 9 o'clock at night.
And your cup is empty.
And hanging out the washing at 10 o'clock at night for the following day. But there was one particular day where he had a van for work, because he's a photographer and he's all the gear. So he has a van for work and I had the family car with the baby seats in it. And one day I was working late and he was going to have to collect the kids from creche and go home. So we had to swap cars. And I remember ringing him and saying, where are you? And it was somewhere up the back of Dublin 8 somewhere, where he said, I'll meet you up there because that's where I am. And driving up there, it was lashing rain and literally bumping the cars up on curbs and swapping them around. And I remember standing in the lashing rain and looking at him and going, this isn't life. Like, what are we doing? This is mental. And it was that started a conversation. My father was dying at the time as well. And Mia, as I say, had a couple of health issues that worried me. And we sat down and when we looked, and I mean, I don't know whether this has changed, but when we looked at what he was earning, what I was earning, and me giving up work and him taking all the allowances then, and therefore paying less tax, we were only going to be something like 50 or 100 quid less well off a week. And I said, this is mental. Maybe we'll try this. Now, I always thought, because again, we are told as women, you'll go mad if you're at home with the kids. Your brain will go to mush and you'll become this lunatic.
And
I said, I'm just going to do it for a year and then get Mia up and running, see my father off, and then I'll go back to work because that's who I am. And I realised I loved it.
Wow. Okay, what? Okay, now I did not expect you to say that at all. I did not expect you to say that. Sorry, I know that they're your greatest achievement. I know you adore your family, and you're so, God, she's so proud of her kids. But I didn't expect you to say that, because actually I remember having conversations when Gia was little, and just how you loved working, and at that time you were really carving out, you know, maybe in your 50s a journalist, and I was like, wow, you're amazing. I can barely do it in my maybe 30s. So to say that you loved being at home.
I loved it.
Why?
Because the pressure, I mean, it was instant.
You're talking about the day-to-day administrative
force. The day-to-day. I remember one of my colleagues rang me one day, who this woman I had shared an office with, you know, she was a bit older than me. She was a bit further down the road. And I remember her ringing me one afternoon and she said to me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going for a walk. I'm pushing the double buggy. And the double buggies in those days were like, you know, tandems. They were huge. You'd need muscles on your muscles. I said, I'm pushing the buggy through the village. I'm for a walk. I have a lasagna in the oven. It'll be ready when I get home. And I just thought, this is actually grand. My relationship improved with my husband. Our quality of life improved. Our food improved.
Yes.
And I also was
your mental health.
My mental health improved.
You weren't.
And that was when I started to write, because I do remember saying to Paul, I still need a desk. He was like, what? And I'm going, I need a desk. And we had a very small house. But I said, I want this corner and I need a desk. And we had to, it was before IKEA, we had to drive for miles, try to find a desk that fitted in this tiny corner. But I needed a little space that was mine, that I could write or do it out. And that was when I started just messing around a little bit with writing. But I also got involved with the Residents Association. I used to edit the parish newsletter.
Yeah, you were always going to do something.
I was always, so this whole thing that, and I mean, this shouldn't be gendered, but women are always told, if you stay at home with your kids, oh my God, your brain will go to mush.
No, but I'm going to counter it in a different way.
Okay.
In a completely different way. I don't agree that, and I think, don't know whether you heard from LinkedIn last week, the career of being a mother is now being recognised. So if
yes.
Oh,
good.
So say I said, I'm applying for a job in LinkedIn as head of marketing because I have previous experience, but also I think it'd be awesome. What had you done for the last 5? Oh, no, I was at home with the children. So that is actually taken into consideration the skill set, whether you have a kid with additional needs or you don't, or just the day-to-day caregiving, the logistical, the fact that you're efficient, effective, that you can run a household, right? All the horseshit that goes with being a mother.
Yeah.
We'll take the father, where no one's belittling being a father, but that role is recognised.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm not at all saying, but working within the home or without the home and being we have to be very PC about that. I think you're correct. People make the decision for financial reasons, mental health reasons, just fucking work. Sometimes they're not paid enough and they hate their job. Some people hate their job, but I'm going to counter it. So you were more concerned. People will go, you'll go mad, Barbara. You're bright,
they did
bright
say that
woman.
to me.
You're intellectual. You need a stimulation.
I'm not intellectual, but
you need an outlet.
Yeah.
I'm going to counter it. My thing is also nowadays with women, maybe, and I'm not of a very different generation, but women now, I know in my 30s and 40s who have married and had their kids and are living the dream, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
If you don't have financial independence.
This is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're kind of fucked. And it's a massive fear for women because I wonder that if back in the day we didn't live as long, so if you were dating someone at 20 and you died at 45, right? That was back in the day.
Yeah.
Then things changed and people lived in what I would call Irish marriages. They suffered in silence because the kids.
Yeah.
Then there was the issue with you couldn't fucking get out because you had no money to get out. So if you were...
I must remember you're allowed to say fuck on this.
Sorry, well, you're not really. No. But if Tommy's bringing in the bread and he's toxic or it's coercive or you have no choice. Yeah. So we know all of this.
Yeah.
And so what also happened with empowering and enabling, and also why shouldn't we be educated in exactly the same way as men, is there was that feeling of if you did choose to marry someone, choose a partner in your 30s, because we're marrying later, you also had a get out of jail free card because you had maybe, and I still think it's an expensive business to separate, but you'd maybe a little bit of your own financial independence. And that is a fear, Barbara, for people who are like, I'm going to temporarily step the fuck away from my career. I'm going to stay home with the kids. Because then what is it? You're asking for lipstick money. You're asking for bus money.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And I mean, again, my mother's generation were the generation. Now, my mother went back to work in the 70s, which was most unusual. I was about 10 when she went back to work. And that was unusual. But before that, I remember my mother getting the housekeeping money. So, you know, my dad was earning the money. He came home every month or whatever, and she got the housekeeping money. And if she needed more money, she had to ask him because she didn't have access to bank accounts. Now, when Sherwood and I got married, and we were late for my generation getting married, we were both in our mid-30s, which was all my friends and his friends married in their 20s. Yeah. So we were late. And I remember that exact thing, thinking, okay, so if I give up work and like up until that, we were both earning approximately equal. And I thought, how's that going to leave me? And I remember sitting down, and I mean, in fairness, he's a good guy like this. I remember sitting down and saying, okay, we had joint accounts anyway. So I said, if I stay at home and do all the kids and all the housework, which I did everything. And I said, that's my job. My job is the cooking, the cleaning, and the kids. And I will do all of that. Monday to Friday. We'd share it on the weekend, but other than that, Monday to Friday, more or less. And you're out earning the money. You're only able to do that because I'm doing all of this. So therefore, it's not your money. It's our money.
I know that.
But I had access to it. I never had to ask him for anything. If I wanted a lipstick, I went and bought it. If I wanted a new outfit, I went and bought it.
If he was an asshole, which you're very fortunate
if he was an asshole,
wasn't.
yes, no, I know. But if you're going to marry somebody...
Even if you're joint accounting it and you're taking what's given for the food shop, because that's ultimately his food that he's eating too. So whatever, right? And you're I'm still saying at the end of a very broken time, maybe a 10-year period and things are really awful, where is your pot of running away money? Where is the rainy day fund? You're in a relationship that was functional, that was communicative. Nothing's perfect, but I'm talking about people that are like, I am locked.
But if you are getting married to somebody and you're buying a house with somebody and you're sharing kids with somebody, I think we have an out of whack idea about maintaining your financial independence. If you've kind of put in your thing with this other person, and that's not to say I don't believe there are men who are horrible and mean. I would always say, and I always say this to my girls, mean, run a mile. Run an absolute mile. A guy who's mean is horrible. I hate meanness. I hate that.
How would you identify a mean man?
Oh, doesn't stand his ground in a pub. At that level, then go. One of these who were all out for dinner and he actually tots up what you had as opposed to what he had, so that in case he might pay slightly more than you pay. Anything like that is a huge red flag. Run a fucking mile. It's a big ick. So if you're going to marry somebody, you know, obviously make sure they're reasonably generous and all the rest of it. When I was what age? After I had Carla, I'd previously worked in the travel business, and then I had Carla, and I couldn't go back into the travel. I did go back for a while, but the hours were too long and it just didn't work for me. So my mother, who was an amazing, phenomenal, brilliant woman, mad as a box of frogs, but brilliant. She had gone back to work in the 70s, ended up in a circuitous route, ended up working for a technology company, ended up getting redundancy and setting up her own business from home at around the same time that I had Carla. So she was teaching word processing. Computers were just new. Up until that, women, you know, in the workplace were all in supportive roles and secretarial roles and and they were typing on typewriters. Yeah. So now there was this shift onto word processing. So my mother got in there at the ground floor and offered word processing training. When I said the travel business was, you know, wrecking my head and I couldn't keep up, and she said to me, give it up, train. There's a 3-month course you can do, train as a teacher and come work with me. Now, I had no interest in computers, zero. But I said, okay, fine. This is, you know, I can be a bit flexible. So I did that. And we offered training. We went into companies and operated as trainers in big companies, but we also did one-to-one tuition from home. And practically all of the clients we had were women going back into the workforce who had been out of the workforce for a number of years because they had kids. And now, you know, when they left, there was a golf ball typewriter. And now they've been faced with a computer and they hadn't a clue. But we had a huge percentage of women, and this would have been, Carla was born in 87, 88, 89. Yeah. We had a huge proportion of women who were going back into the workforce, not because they wanted to, they still had young kids, but because they had to, because the husband had upped and left. And these women were amazing. I mean, they were broken, they were emotionally distraught, they were absolutely afraid of their lives.
For other women,
the husbands left for somebody younger. It was the amount of them, and some of them were left with the mortgage, and they were like, I don't know how I'm going to keep this boat afloat. But they did, because women are phenomenal.
We are.
And they were amazing.
We have some weird inner resilience.
We really do. So, I mean, I would just, you know, if you're staying, I'm not suggesting for everybody that staying at home is something that I'm not here to say everybody should stay at home with your kids. It's great to relieve the pressure. But I am saying that we need to change society so that within a family, or where there's 2 partners parenting, that it is not impossible for one partner to say, I'm going to stay at home for 5 years until the kids start school.
That was my dream.
Yeah. But I think
I took a good mat leave for Simone. Well, I took everything I could, because I hadn't with G. I'd gone back at 5 months, but I did spend, and I actually loved it.
Yeah.
I found different parts of myself.
But do you find that hard to say?
No, I'm very proud of it. I find it hard with Gia. I think I've grown up and matured a lot. I think with Gia, I was very happy to say, I went back 5 months.
I did that with Roshi.
You know, there was a lot of bullshit involved in that. And I was very unhappy. I was definitely postnatal. I was pumping milk, cycling up to her creche, giving her the milk they were never giving it to her because they didn't want to break my heart. So there was definitely a lot caught up in that and traumas of that. But no, I asked for it. I thought the company would laugh at me because I thought, here's this very ambitious, tough old boot. But I wanted the softness of that. I needed it. I'd taken a while to have her. But no, I did love it. And there's a lot to be said for all of this. But I don't know what the answer. I think it's a really difficult one.
If you could retain your career trajectory and your position, but work, say, 3 days a week.
Yeah, it's next to impossible because you still work 5.
But could you do it? If you could do it, would you do it?
I mean, I'd love to be more. I feel like my husband is the stay-at-home mom because he works... He can work remotely.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm very jealous. Because the girls adore him.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that at night when it's like, I want daddy. Because you feel like women intrinsically should be the wanted person, and I struggle.
But you know what? That's always the way. When I was at home with them, I was still the big bad witch of the West. Because I was the one giving out all the time.
Because I do all the homework and the laying down law, and he's the sort.
And Sherwood did breeze in all jazz hands and like
Beyonce.
And I remember most of their childhoods, I spent saying to Paul, stop winding them up. Yeah. It's bedtime in 20 minutes. Stop winding them up.
Stop being so exciting. I'm not, for all the showbiz, I'm quite strict.
Yeah.
Please, can we talk about Carla?
Yeah.
So I don't really know the ins and outs, and you don't have to tell us everything, but you were dating someone or you weren't dating someone?
I wasn't dating someone. Okay. I went on holidays.
Amazing. She had sexual intercourse. So, fine. So I didn't know. Okay, so it's on holiday, you have sex, and you come home and you're preggo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't know that.
Yeah. I was a time in my life, again, there was a lot going on in my
What age
personal
were you?
life. I was 24 when I became pregnant. I was
Young,
24
yeah.
when
Well,
Carla
not
was
a baby
born.
either, though. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in those days, I left school at 17, so I'd been
Okay.
working since I was 17.
Okay, so you're grown up enough.
So, I'd had whatever many years that is of work. Now, I hadn't planned in any way to get pregnant, but there was a part of me, because my heart was broken. I'd had a romance that went tits up. I had a broken heart. There was stuff going on in my family that was difficult. And there was a part of me from the get-go, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, there was a part of me from the get-go that was actually kind of like, I felt as if I'd thrown a hand grenade into my life, which I wasn't happy with. And sure, maybe when all the pieces come down, it'll be better. Now, that was a foolish strategy.
No, it's such an interesting thing.
But
I think we all do it, and we self-sabotage to get somewhere. It's so interesting.
Having said that, I never, ever for a moment, even, this was 1987. Ireland was not a nice place to be a single parent. Even though we'd introduced, we were unmarried mothers, of course. We weren't single parents. We were unmarried mothers. They had introduced the unmarried mothers.
You were slutty McSlutterbags.
You were total
Stop.
slut.
I can't.
I'll give you
It's just so.
Let me give you an example, right? So I'm at home. Now, my father had real difficulty, and I write about this in the book. My father had real difficulty initially. I was his eldest. He was very proud of me. I'd done really well in school. He wanted me to go into the civil service. I didn't do that. He was a bit disappointed with that. But other than that, I was jobbing in the travel business, and I was doing well, and I was enjoying life, and I was great. And so he was so disappointed, and it was disappointment. He wasn't angry. He was just like really disappointed, which is worse. Anyway, that's fine. So anyway, he got over himself eventually. And so I was at home. I was on maternity leave. Carla was a baby. My father had retired. Now, he was, as he would say himself, a senior civil servant.
Sorry, the father of Carla?
No, Spain, no interest.
Fine, and you'd no interest in communicating.
I had tried to contact him, and it didn't. The letter I'd sent never reached him, so I knew he didn't know.
Fine, okay, just wanted to know that.
He did know a year later. I mean, then I had Carla, and I concentrated on all that. When she was a year old, we did make contact. Now, he was never involved, and that's fine. Suited me. So I'm at home on maternity leave. Carla's a couple of weeks old. My dad's retired. He's at home as well. The phone rings. No mobile phones, phone in the hall. So I went out and picked it up, and it was a friend and an ex-colleague of my father's, somebody very senior in our public service who would have had a degree of public profile, right? And he said, could he speak to my dad? And I said, sure, got my dad. Now, I could only hear one side of the conversation, right? But it went like this. Oh, yeah, hi. I won't say his name. Yeah, how are you? This is my father speaking. And he said, oh, no. That was Barbara. He obviously thought it was my mother who danced the phone. He said, no, that was Barbara. And he goes, oh, no, she is working. Yeah, no, she's just, and I could hear my father getting into a panic. And he said, no, she's just on maternity leave. And I was listening to this, and I was going, oh my God. And then my father said, no, she didn't get married. No, she didn't. No, she's just on her own. And then he said, yeah, no, she does know who the father is. And fuck off. That, and do you know what upset me most about that? Wasn't the slur on my personality, on my character. Yeah. It was the fact that my father was upset and having to be belittled, I felt, by this man. I was upset for my dad. That's how fucked up Ireland was. That I thought I was deserving of that kind of question, and I thought, but my father wasn't. So
and you felt he was taking the hit.
I thought he was, and I was upset for him. I wasn't upset or angry for me. I was upset for him. But that was the type. I mean, I spent most of Carla's, certainly her younger years, it felt, listening to conversations both on the radio and on the Late Show about unmarried mothers and the scourge of unmarried mothers. Now, it was very like the conversations that went on before marriage equality here about how, number one, the supports that the state offered, which was the unmarried mother's allowance. And, obviously you could apply for a house in the days when we were still building social housing. So the conversations were, by these supports, we are encouraging all these women and girls to go and get pregnant. Oh my God, it's like the repeal.
It's like abortion referendum.
Yeah. And then the next thing was, all of these unmarried mothers, all their children are going to grow up to be delinquent because they have no fathers in their lives. So they're clearly going to be delinquent. And even though the logical side of my brain could say, that's ridiculous, that doesn't make sense. I remember at Carla's 21st. Now, at this stage, I'm Mrs. Respectable. I have two more kids. Carla's 21.
You're always Mrs. Respectable.
Yeah. Well, I liked being outside the circle of respectability, but Chinchgalella. Standing at Carla's 21st, and I remember watching her. We were all there. She was having a party. She was on the dance floor with her mates. And I had this light bulb moment where I suddenly went, she's actually fine. She's actually the same as all her mates. And that was when I realised how much I had internalized this bullshit.
Did you think she wasn't going to be?
In the back of my brain, somewhere in my subconscious mind, I was waiting for her life to fall apart, for her to go off the tracks, for her to become this delinquent in whatever way that would look. Barbara. Because that's what I was told for years in this country, for years. You know, so yeah, no, it was, and I was lucky. I don't know how women did it who didn't have the support of their families. I had the support of my family who were in the main. My brothers.
You telling me humans? Give me a break. There are so many messed up humans, flawed humans.
It makes
criminals who have the most privileged upbringing, have a heteronormative couple who are raising them, who are fucked with that. And I'm sorry, we have so many single women, or maybe a man who's lost their wife for whatever reason, bringing up children who are fundamentally brilliant in this country. And to think that if I had to raise my kids on my own, I think I'd be pretty super. Yeah. It's so sad to me.
Yeah, but we heard exactly the same bullshit when we were debating marriage equality, that children brought up in a same-sex couple were also going to be in some way damaged because they didn't have a mom, or just a biological mom, or they didn't have a biological dad. I mean, but it's rubbish.
But it's like rubbish. Abortion. It'll encourage women to shag around.
You know, so
wow.
Anyway.
You say at 21 you look at her and you're watching her like in a movie type moment where you're like, she's grand, right? How was raising Carla? So you took it on with the plum because you are, I'm sorry, don't care, I know it's a really annoying word, I'm strong, but you are an amazing, and you had the mum and you were at home. You took on raising her, and it seems in the back of your mind or somewhere deep down, you really were needing this in your life, maybe to raise this kid or something in you.
I thought I was, but I do, and the first year, I love babies. I love babies. So the first year kind of passed in a blur of me going to college to learn how to be a teacher, and my baby, who was lovely, and everything was fine. But I do know that by the time she was probably about 2, so I was coming up to 30, I was like 27, I was desperately lonely because you're not married, obviously, but you're also not free as you were. But
you're also
not
single. Sharing the day to day.
You're not sharing the day to day
or what you did or the.
Yeah, nobody's as interested as you are. But also you're not, as I say, you're not free, so you're not single. So it is quite
it's not
lonely.
like you can go out clubbing. You have to get someone to. Yeah, okay.
So it was very lonely.
Do you compare raising the 2 girls with Paul to raising Carla? Like, do you try not to contrast?
Obviously, I try not to contrast, but obviously
it was very hard.
The 2, it was easier. But having said that, I am married to a complete goddamn workaholic. So I mean, there were more than one rouse when they were small going, I might as well still be a single parent.
Fine.
I never see you. Where are you? But I'm also a control freak, so it kind of suited me as well.
But you had her, you meet Paul when? What age is Carla?
Carla was about 9 when I met Paul. Yeah, and I'd met other guys. There had been 1 or 2 before Paul. And
Carla had met?
Them. Yeah.
And she hated them.
I remember one particular guy.
Did you listen to that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember, and I mean, I was all over the place. Like my choices were really
okay.
And she was a way better judge of men than I was. But I remember one particular guy who there was a cake sale on in Carla's school, and we worked together. And so this guy came with me down to the cake sale on lunchtime. And I remember Carla coming out and saying, "Don't you ever bring him near here again, ever." She hated him, and she was right. Anyway,
but you meet Paul when she's 9.
When we met Paul, and I mean, Paul is completely different from any guy I'd ever gone out with before. I mean, I've said this to Paul. He knows this. I think because I was 35 or whatever when I met him, a lot of the bullshit had been knocked out of me. Like, if a fella wore the wrong socks, I wasn't having any of it when I was younger. And suddenly I was looking for something different. And Paul is, I mean, he's very quiet, but he's very steady. And he's like, I'm the one with all the fizz and all the get up and go and all the, okay, let's do this and okay, let's do that. And he's the one that goes, hang on a minute. But Carla and he got on from the absolute get-go, and that was really important to me. And she genuinely liked him, and she was a far better judge.
Had he had another family? No.
How
did he...
Paul never wanted kids, and so when we met, he was thrilled that I had a daughter who was half raised, because he thought, that's grand, I can kind of paddle around in a bit of kind of parenting of an older child without getting into all the messy stuff, and that'll be grand. And he said he never wanted children, and so I said, well, I do, and then I won him around. I mean, he was grand.
2 kids quite quickly.
2 kids very quickly. Yeah. We had Roisin. We were 2 years in and married, and we had Roisin. And then he was desperate to go for vasectomy, and I was like, no, you're not going for a vasectomy. No, we need, and I remember I used to wind him up at this. We need an heir and a spare. Like, I need another spare. Like, you know what I mean? Just in case. Because it was like having two families.
So
I mean,
funny.
Carla was half reared at that stage. So, do you know, I said, we might as well have another one, like when this one is small. So, yeah, he's easy enough to bully. He didn't want cats either. We have 4 cats. He didn't want a dog. We're on our second dog.
But my husband is not Paul. How did Carla fit in with the girl? Like, how was that dynamic bringing them all
Well, actually,
up?
it's interesting.
Or can you just say it was perfect? Or can you be on it?
It wasn't perfect.
No.
Carla, I probably worried more about getting married, you know, and how that would affect Carla, even though I knew she loved Paul, but I just felt like now getting married and, you know, I have this other person in my life who's very important because when you're a single parent, your relationship with your child is really close and it's really kind of, it's intense, you know? And I think that's possibly one of the downsides of being a single parent is that you're very intensely kind of connected to each other. So when Paul came in, I was worried about the effect that would have on her. That didn't have any effect on her. She was game ball with all of that. But I think I didn't anticipate how she might feel when she had 2 more sisters as a teenager, which is a time when you're kind of all over the shop anyway. So although we didn't have any major kind of issues to deal with, I think probably I wasn't as aware as I should have been at how hard it was for her and it was, she did, you know, sharing me with Paul was one thing because I was his wife.
Kids. Yeah.
But now I'm mom. I was always her mom and only her mom, and now I'm suddenly mom to Roisin, and then I'm mom to Mia. No, it was a couple of years when I'd say, yeah, she probably did, and she probably acted out a little bit, which I just put down
Or
to being a
pulled back
teenager.
a little bit, maybe. No?
Yeah, I think she was of the 3 of them, she was the one who was the most challenging as a teenager. And I think it was because that she had these 2 other who took up all my time, like obviously. I mean, whereas before, like I was at Carla's beck and call, and now suddenly I had one baby and then very quickly another baby. So I had a toddler and a baby. So it was, I didn't give her she suddenly went from having all my attention to having probably very little attention. And I think that was probably more difficult for her than either of us realized, you know, but it only lasted a couple of years. And now I am so grateful. And I mean, Carla lives in Australia and she's lived there for 12 years. The brat.
12 years.
12 years. Yeah. The wagon. But I just
I've known you 8 or 9 and she had moved and you thought she might come back, and we're now 12 years. Life passes so quickly, Barbara, and
she bought a house last week, so
married, house, 2 kids.
But she's happy and I'm happy, you know, for I think for any
but you
parent,
and Carla have a very special you
Yeah,
and
we're
Carla's
very
relationship
close.
kills my soul. Kills my soul. I can't watch too much of it because I get very it's the most beautiful thing.
Oh well, I don't know if it's beautiful now. It's full of Carla's probably, and Roisin's like me as well. Carla's pretty like me. And I always felt when I was parenting her, like I was like, when you have a child who's very like you and you're parenting them and it's difficult, I think very often it feels like you're fighting with yourself. Do you know? And she always knew exactly what buttons to press, as you know, usually will happen. But we're very close. But what makes me now so absolutely delighted, now that they're all adults, they all get on with each other. And I mean, after COVID, when Australia locked down for over 2 years and we couldn't see them, my grandson was born. I never met him until he was 1.5 years old. So Paul and I went out immediately. Australia reopened, which was in March.
Which we all watched.
Yeah.
Barbara Scully's Instagram.
Overshare everything.
Love it.
We
it's
went
so
out.
important to see, like, this stuff, don't share it all, or do share, but don't half-house it. Like, brilliant. Sent it to my mum. Who's that? Oh, the woman. Oh, she, you know, crazy.
And the girls, so Paul and I went out immediately in the March that they reopened, and then Mia was at college and she was in Italy actually on Erasmus, and Roisin was working, but they went out in the summer and initially for 2 weeks. Now Mia had to come back because she was going to college, but Roisin stayed for like 6 weeks, and I'm so pleased that they all get on so well. I only discovered recently that they have a WhatsApp group. Like, we have a family WhatsApp group, and then we have what we call the home team, so that because sometimes we're sent in stupid messages and they'll wake Carla up at night, like, you know what I mean? So we have the home team, and then I discovered the 3 of them have a WhatsApp group that I'm not involved in.
Damn right.
But that
Damn
makes
right.
me happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I know there's all this stuff going around between the 3 of them. So that's good.
Is it the greatest achievement being a parent? Forget about being a wife or a career. What's your great?
I don't consider my children my achievement. I honestly don't. They are the greatest joy in my life. They are
But you
the most
parented them.
important
It's
thing.
the hardest job
But
being a
it
mother.
comes back-
Sorry, it's so
yeah, it
hard.
is a hard job, and I'm not undermining
It's blood,
that
sweat,
at all.
and tears
It's hard work
from
and
the
it is-
labour ward to the university
but
campus.
who they are now is entirely of their own
Do you
doing.
think so?
I do. I actually do. I mean, okay.
Probably
Paul
you've
and I
influenced them.
Possibly, and we provided them, and I know we're privileged in that. You know, I mean, I'm always saying that. You know,
They'd
when
never
I
to
give them a
ask
lecture,
or-
I'm always
yeah.
going. You know, we live in a bubble. You know, you guys have never had to worry about this
Sure,
or that or the
sure.
other. You've always had space to do your homework. You've always had a clean bed. You've always had, you know, all that stuff. But who they are now as young women is entirely down to themselves, I believe.
I don't think you're giving yourself credit, and I don't know if, and I know I don't have as much experience of life. I don't know if I agree with that. I think you are an incredible person.
Well, I mean,
and you've given
I
them.
think women in general are incredible. I genuinely do. I don't think. I mean, there are far better mothers out there than I was. As I say, if I was anything,
Why would you say that?
Because I was a bit too like. I mean, my best friend, who's like my conscience, and she lives across the road from me, and we've known each other since we were 7, right? And she knows me pretty well. And she'll often say that, like, you know what I mean? That
What
like
does
they
she
come
say?
home with something. I'm like, you're grand. It's grand. Don't
But do you
worry,
think
it's
that has
grand."
been good for them?
Do you think
Is that a good parenting tip? Do you think?
No,
that-
I don't think so necessarily. I think I could have been a little more clued in sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? I'm a bit too kind of glass half full all the time. And sometimes I don't see what's straight in front of my eyes that maybe I should have seen coming a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, none of us are perfect. There is no perfect parenting. There is no perfect mother. It doesn't exist.
What was the hardest part of it all?
Just the sheer physicality of when they were younger.
So the exhaustion.
The exhaustion. And that's the great thing about getting older. And that's one of the things, and I see it sometimes with women who are in their 50s and their kids are adults, but they're still running around doing everything. And I made a conscious decision once they started college. Now, Carla was different, obviously, because the others were younger when she was kind of at that age, and then she left. But I mean, when they started college, to both of them, I said, right, Grant, you're adults. If I'm here and I'm making dinner and you want some, there'll be some, and that's fine. But if I'm going out or if I'm doing something more interesting than making the dinner, you look after yourselves. There's a freezer and, you know, you need to learn to cook anyway. So, you know, knock yourselves out. Their washing, like, yeah, I'll do their washing if they bring it down and put it and sort it and put it beside the washing machine. I'll do it because I'm at home. But at the same time, I'm not always there and I could disappear for a few days. So, you know, you need to keep an eye on these things yourself. I don't believe in mollycoddling them at this stage. They know I have my own life. And this is where, as soon as I turned 50, and I mean, you know, you talked about me reinventing myself, and I did when I turned 50, out of necessity, recession, you know, I needed to get back out and start to earn some money. Ageism and the recession meant that it was very hard to get a paid job. So I started writing and contributing to radio and television, which was where me went and all that kind of stuff. But they know that that's important to me and they know that that's my life. And I started to withdraw the services that they're well able to do themselves at that point.
Is that not good for them to see, though?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it is.
And
Absolutely.
women doing that.
But I think that women don't. I think it's really important that women of your age and older and younger know that these freedoms are coming down the track. And the hard yards, okay, I wish we could change it so that it wasn't as hard for young families now. I really wish we could change that.
So you can enjoy it.
But you will enjoy it once you get into your 50s and you're over the worst
But
of
isn't it a
menopause.
pity we feel like we can't enjoy it when we're in the trenches and working
Well,
full-time?
I think what happen is you enjoy the moments. Like when I look back on those times.
I agree. I
think
enjoy the birthdays
it was a
and the
slog,
weekends and
but
the-
there were some,
yeah.
like when I look back, there were great moments.
Do you have any regrets with parenting?
Oh God, do I have any? I don't really agree with doing the regrets thing. I do, yeah. I mean, I'm not, as I said to you, I'm not a particularly brilliant parent, so I'm sure there are, but I don't really tend to go there because it's too late now. And if I hadn't made those mistakes, I would have made a whole raft of different
The
mistakes.
best thing about being a parent, to being
is
a mom?
now having adult kids who I really like, who I think are good people, who make me laugh, who keep me grounded, you know, who tell me, you know, they tell me exactly like it is. And it's funny, both of them have been the ones who are here at Carla, only because she's not here, but both Roisin and Mia have been amazing marketeers when it came to my book. And they'll come and support me. And if I'm doing a talk somewhere, they'd be like, do you want us to come and sell your books? Or do you want us to come and help you?
And when your mum passed away,
And they
they
were very close to her as well. Very, very close to her. So she was just the best. And that's the other thing, which I consider myself very lucky in that we all learn to parent by how we were parented.
Wow.
So I was...
That's the only clip would be... That's a huge...
But that's the truth.
That's huge. I don't think it's a burden, but that's quite intense.
It is, yeah. But
So what if you're parented really badly, Barbara?
It's very difficult then for you to be a good parent because you don't learn it at school.
Wow.
You can't even learn it out of a book. You really can't. So, your parenting, how you parent comes from how you were parented. And
you don't think generationally we can change our generational traumas or shift? You don't think so?
I don't know. I do. I think we definitely can.
You don't think if someone came from a rubbish background or the dad left or there was shitty thing,
absolutely,
you don't think you can fundamentally change?
Oh, I do. I absolutely believe you can change that. But I do believe that you've got to recognize the fact. Do you know what I mean? If you came from a very dysfunctional background where the parenting you got was substandard, you've got to recognize that. You'll possibly need some help to get over that, but it's absolutely doable. I've just finished reading Richard Hogan's book, which is about home is where the start is. Richard Hogan, he's a psychotherapist, often on the media. He's written a very good book about the influences of your home life. But he had a very dysfunctional home life. His father was an alcoholic, which he writes about in the book. So it's absolutely possible. And the other book, and I'm interviewing both of these people in 2 weeks' time in Westport at the Rolling Sun Book Festival. The other person who wrote about the same thing is Katrina O'Sullivan, who wrote the book Poor.
Love that book.
And again,
love that book.
She has overcome the most incredible.
But you know what I mean?
So you can overcome it. But for most of us who had the in inverted commas, normal parenting, that will probably dictate our parenting style. So my mother was, she never read a parenting book in her life. She was very unorthodox in a way that she parented all of us. But again, for me, it was terrific. And she was also a brilliant grandmother. And that was really important. Like when my kids were small, and I know your mum is good too. When my kids were small, she was a great backup, and she was a great influence on them. And she had a fantastic relationship with them. And it's one of the things that I really work hard at. Like when I go home now, I have to go to the post office and I have the box ready to go to Australia with Halloween decorations, costumes, all that kind of stuff. And because that is really important to me, that I keep that connection with my grandchildren, even though I don't see them as much as I would like to see them, obviously, because they are hugely important to me. And I think and that's the other great thing about being a parent, is the hope that you will become a grandparent down the line, because that is just the most delicious relationship. And I feel it is the reward for being a parent.
For all the horseshit.
Is that suddenly you're a grandparent and you can do all the mad stuff with your grandkids, and you can spoil them, and you can break all the rules because you're a granny, or as I am in my family, I'm Bap, and Bap's allowed to do whatever she wants, and Bap doesn't care what mom Carla thinks, because I'm Bap, so I can do all of this, and that's brilliant. I
bask in your light, and I always did. Like I remember having a connection with you where you just taught me so much about all the insecurities and inconsistencies.
Well? I'm really loving this.
Honestly, I remember basking in it and always needing to take a little tiny little nugget, and I wanted to have you on, but you are fundamentally such a good, important role model for women in this country, and you are, and what you talk about, we are listening to you, but keep doing it, because we're trying to do it in we're kind of scurrying around beneath you.
Well, so I do think it's up to us older women who have the time, the energy, the creativity, don't have the small kids, just try and push for change to make it easier for families, not just moms and dads and whoever's parenting. It shouldn't be as hard as it is, and that annoys me. It hasn't gotten any easier in the 25 years since I was doing it. In fact, I think it's got harder.
Yeah.
And that needs to change. We need to change the way we work so that it isn't as hard as it is right now.
Barbara Scully,
thank you
so much. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Little Birdie Told Me, and if you did, it would mean a lot to me if you could like, subscribe and share this episode.